Well, it's Friday afternoon, so I thought it would be time to jump on here and just have a little quick chat as we head into the weekend. It is beautiful weather where I am, and it's my day off. And my biggest decision I have to make today is: am I going to see the new Mission Impossible movie or Oppenheimer? And literally, that's what I'm up against. I guess it all depends. If my daughter wants to go to the movies with me, we'll probably go see Mission Impossible. If I end up flying solo tonight because my wife is not available, then I'll be going to see Oppenheimer. That said, we got a lot going on in our country, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. Jason Aldean, the country singer that released a song back in May that didn't really bother anybody, but all of a sudden now it's on the cancel culture's hit list. A little song called Not in My Town. And it's basically just the story of small town America, rural America, and how a lot of what goes on in these cesspools of the big cities would just not be tolerated there. Disrespect, rioting, looting, burning, lawlessness, beating down on police officers would not be tolerated there. It would not be celebrated there. You would not catch and release these criminals. You wouldn't just watch droves of people walk into a store, shoplift, and walk out with half the store and nothing being done about it. It just wouldn't happen there. I grew up in small town America. I can tell you it wouldn't happen there. I live in a city now population about 50,000, so it's still quote-unquote small town America. Doesn't happen here. This is just not the culture, and it has nothing to do with race. And the fact that they've tried to make it about race, if you listen to the song, I can't play it here for copyright reasons, but if you will listen to the song, if you'll download and read a copy of the lyrics, there's nothing racist at all about the song or even inferred in the song. It is simply speaking in the sense that we cannot have a society that is based on nothing but lawlessness. We just can't have it. It's not good for anyone, and it's not good for any race. It's not good for the minority communities when their community looks like a war zone. That because of the rioting, because of the looting and the burning and the shoplifting, that stores are pulling out, businesses are pulling out, leaving people literally in urban blight with nothing. It's not good for anyone to have a society that functions like this. And I don't know, and I don't understand the madness of those who want to vilify Jason Aldean. Well, I do get it politically, but then they will celebrate gangster rap, talking about pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon, cop killer, and just some of the most vile of lyrics that are literally designed to do nothing but incense people into rioting, into doing absolute lawless acts. That's all that music does. It just encourages anger, festering resentment, hatred, and, if you will, white racism. And it does. That's exactly what that type of music does. But that gets celebrated. That gets Emmys. That gets Grammys. And it gets protected by Joe Biden and the far left. And it's talked about as a celebration. And when we had the Summer of Love, despite all of the mandates and the lockdowns and the mask mandates, all that got to go away because actually we were told by members of the CDC and other liberal ilk that these people marching in the streets and doing their mostly peaceful protests with, city blocks behind them emblazoned in fire and smashing police cars, that the expression of freedom was far more powerful than the virus. Funny how they changed their tune about that on January the 6th, though, isn't it? But I digress. Jason Aldean is not apologizing. He's not out there saying, I'm sorry, I was insensitive. He's not doing any of that. He's pushing back. He is basically saying, look, there was nothing racist about this song. It's been out since May. And I've watched the video now a couple of times, and he's right. They didn't do any dramatization. It isn't like he went out and hired a film crew and a bunch of actors to film these scenes. He just took footage from the evening news. That's it. These are just public access news clips put together in a song to tell a narrative. And if you don't like the images you're seeing, well, then change the behavior of the people in those videos who are engaged in that behavior. It's really not any more complicated than that. But of course, that's not what they're going to do. That lawlessness gets celebrated, and a guy pointing that out, he's going to get vilified. He's a racist. He's obviously probably a homophobe. He is, a right-winger. He's pro-America. He's, how dare he be pro, First Amendment freedom of speech. He needs to be removed from social media platforms. And so Country Music Television stepped in and pulled his video. Now, Country Music Television is owned by MTV, which really MTV needs to change its name because it doesn't really show music videos anymore. Now, when I was a teenager back in the 80s, early 80s, when MTV got started, that's what kind of made it kind of a cool channel to watch. They showed music videos. Then, we started getting into My Baby's Mama and all this hogwash and 16 and Pregnant and all of their own quasi-reality shows, and they even tried to have their own MTV news service, which bombed and flopped and is now defunct here on YouTube. And, they had some videos that, got like 500 to 1,000 views. Look, I do what I do strictly as a hobby, and I've got a few videos out there that have gotten 50,000 views, 171,000 views. Now, most of the time, I get somewhere between 300 and 500 views. That's okay. This isn't my livelihood. It's not my job. This is just me coming out here and ranting and sharing my opinion with you. But when you are a known trademark like MTV, when you consider yourself having your finger on the social pulse of America and what people are in tune with, and you put out material and you can't get 500 people to watch, that says something about what people think of your so-called influence. So MTV owns Country Music Television. Of course, they bought into the whole woke cancel culture mindset. At the last Country Music Awards, talk about the higher ups not understanding their target audience. We got treated to music by drag queens because drags just go, and country music just sort of go together. Not. They've learned nothing from the Dylan Mulvaney experiment with Bud Light and the fact that Bud Light is tanking and it ain't never coming back. It's never going to be number one again. They won't go out of business, but it's just never coming back. It's just never going to be what it was. Go woke, go broke. And Jason Aldean and his wife, they are not backing down. They are not apologizing. And since all the hubbub, his song is now number one. And there will be pressure put on Spotify and every other social media platform that carries music to get rid of it. So far, his video is still available on YouTube. We'll see how much longer that lasts. But the reality is the left, the progressives can't handle it when you show people the obvious. Now, I've watched some reaction videos here on YouTube from some black people watching the video. I have yet to find one where they were offended by it. Now, they didn't all necessarily, they're not into country and they didn't necessarily agree with it, but the reaction videos I've watched, the Cartier family and a few others, nobody was offended by it. And they all kind of get it like, yeah, you're not going to go into a small town and start setting things on fire and not have the police and even the people who live there basically come out and put a stop to it. It's just not going to happen there. And so the fact that we have a complete erosion of our culture of moral value, you got Gavin Newsom out there now suing school districts that refuse to carry his extreme LGBTQ A1 plus 5 minus 3 curriculum. They were showing some pictures of it on another podcast, and it's, laid out like a comic book, but it has visual instruction of male on male sex and oral sex and how to do it. And this is written for 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds. You know, the mixed signal hypocrisy, and it's not really hypocrisy. On the one hand, these deviants on the left, talking about that children are nothing but sexual beings and therefore, gotta love those interruptions that we get. But the bottom line is, as we watch the left absolutely continue to destroy any fiber of morality and decency in this country, and telling us that yes, children, in order to be accepting of the trans community, of the gay community, they have to be educated like this. We have adults who want to go into classrooms and talk to 8-year-olds about their own sexual exploits. I don't want gay people doing that. I don't want heterosexual people doing that. And while we're starting to sexualize children, because what we're doing is we want to create this in the minds of young people so that by the time they're a little bit older, that basically every sort of depravity is accepted. And while we're doing that, we turn right around and we put out documentaries about how vile and vulgar, like, the Duggars, 19 kids and counting, because Josh Duggar is a teenage boy engaged in some behavior that he certainly shouldn't have engaged in. And he ended up going to jail over child pornography. And I'm certainly not here to defend Joshua Duggar. But while we condemn that because they're white Christians and conservatives, the liberals have no problem with sexualizing children and other deviant behavior. That's completely okay. And so along comes a country singer who basically said, yeah, that just doesn't fly in my town. And the left has gone into meltdown mode. There was a time back in the day when conservatives and traditionalists and Christians used to complain about shows like All in the Family because of the content and the language. All we ever heard from the left was, turn the dial or turn it off. Turn the dial, turn it off. Well, now the left no longer says turn the dial or turn it off. When you say anything they don't agree with, they want to turn you off. They want to deplatform you. They want to strip you of your ability to express your First Amendment freedom. That's the Joe Obama America. Donald Trump, as he pushes back and pushes on in his campaign, is set to go to trial for taking documents that he wasn't supposed to have, despite the fact he was the president and he can declassify anything he chooses to. Well, this trial's now going to happen in May. You know what starts in January? Yes, primary voting. And right in the middle of primary season, Donald Trump is going to be on trial for documents. You think maybe they'll get around to the J6 trial in October? This is the play. This is all the Democrats have got now. And this is why guys like Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and the rest of that ilk are hanging around in the primaries, despite the fact they don't have a chance. They're hoping beyond hope that somehow through this indictment process, though they have to come out and, talk about how awful it is, in reality, they want it to work. They want it to knock Trump out because that's the only way they can get in and stand any kind of a shot. That's it, period. So it's the swamp all working together, and it's not about left versus right. It's about right versus wrong. And so Donald Trump will have to deal with, a trial during the actual primary. And then to kind of wrap up my Friday rant here today, Deep State Ron, yes, Ron DeSanctimonious, has said, no one's entitled Donald Trump needs to debate. That wimpy voice that DeSantis has, honestly, no one's entitled. Well, I got news flash for you, Ron. You aren't either. You know, you only do interviews that are going to be softball and easy, which is why you pretty much just hang out with Fox News. You don't want to be interviewed more than 10 to 15 minutes. You won't go and do like a Joe Rogan podcast or anyone else and be run through it for a couple to 3 hours straight. You won't do it. Look, Donald Trump went on the Breakfast Club. I mean, Donald Trump goes into unfriendly territory when CNN and MSNBC would have him on. He goes. Not Ron DeSanctimonious, because Ron thinks he's entitled. I did a good job in Florida. Here's my resume. Now just give me the job of being president without interviewing me. That's Ron DeSantis. He is the epitome, poster child of somebody who sees himself as entitled. Donald Trump is the incumbent. I know. Joe Biden won the election. Wink, wink. No. Donald Trump is about to make history as 45 and 47. And Ron, you're dropping. You're dropping, and you're grasping at straws. There's been a shakeup at the DeSantis campaign. They've let a bunch of staffers go. He's not gearing up for Super Tuesday. He's only gearing up for Iowa and New Hampshire. That's it. And if he has a good showing there, then he'll roll the dice on everything else. Do you understand? This guy really isn't all in. He wants to kind of act like he's all in, but he really isn't. So why should Trump get on a stage and debate you? You're not for real. You're not credible. And you're just, deep state Ron. Hey, all of you, have a good weekend.